are the best second lieutenants? Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and recently I posed the question to my members, what commissioning source produces the best second lieutenants? West Point, ROTC, or OCS? And what really struck me was that, number one, there was no clear winner. Different people had different preferences. And number two, there is a curious set of pros and cons for each different type of second lieutenant. When it comes to a West Point second lieutenant, one of the first big benefits is that they know literally hundreds of other officers. They are like a built-in human network. A company commander can send a West Point second lieutenant all the way over to the other side of post to deal with some other unit, and the odds are, when that second lieutenant gets there, he's going to know somebody else that he met at West Point. And so the ring knockers can use that relationship to get the work of the two units done. Another benefit of West Pointers is that they come from an environment where being in uniform and being part of the military establishment is really a 24/7 experience. And so for them, it really doesn't matter how long the days are. They're comfortable with the idea that the military is their entire life. I would go so far as to say that I have even seen this attribute in the way that general officers behave. Now, I do think that there are a couple of drawbacks to your standard issue West Point second lieutenant. The first thing is, well, they think a lot of themselves. They have been told that they are the best of the best of the best, and they really haven't encountered anything that would suggest differently. Even the ones who graduate at the bottom of the class, well, the class is the best of the best, so they still must be pretty special, right? As a result, it can be kind of difficult for NCOs and senior officers to get through to the West Point lieutenants that they still need to learn and grow. The second shortcoming, and it's tied to this confidence that the West Pointers have, is that they may not exactly understand how real units work. You know, they've been in an artificial training environment for years where everybody around them, well, they're just other cadets. It has not been an environment where they had to deal with junior enlisted and warrant officers and senior NCOs. They may think that they know what they are doing, but they also may misinterpret what everybody else is doing. The next group you got is ROTC, the college boys. Now, in all honesty, I'm a product of the ROTC program, so I'm probably biased, right? I mean, there are a couple of benefits of coming through the ROTC program, but to be honest, they might be mixed blessings. Number one, ROTC graduates have spent their formative years mixing with people who think about things well beyond the military world. ROTC second lieutenants have gotten a sense of the civilian employment environment. Maybe they worked while they were in college, maybe they just had friends who were applying for jobs in corporate America. But at any rate, they have a sense of the world that exists beyond the gates of an installation. And to some extent, that view of civilian life suggests that there are people different than them. The other benefit of ROTC second lieutenants, although some people will say that this can also be a disadvantage, is that they tend to view the military as a part-time job. While they were in ROTC, they had all sorts of other academic and extracurricular activities that they engaged in. And to those lieutenants, ROTC was just another of these activities. West Pointers might have participated in very similar activities, but for ROTC members, there was almost a requirement that they had to take the uniform off to do those things. ROTC cadets were required to set aside their military mindset, and while that may be good or bad, it can also show up in how they think about their commissioned duties. Another quality of lieutenants who've come through the ROTC program that, well, it can be a benefit or a disadvantage depending how it plays out, is that unlike West Point cadets, they don't actually know that many people in the military. Often they come from relatively small groups of cadets, and as a result, they may have a sense that they don't fully understand the military and the people who are doing the job. In the best cases, this can lead them to be more open to advice from NCOs and officers who are trying to shape and guide them. But in the worst cases, the fact that they don't know very much about the military lifestyle, well, it can make them erratic. The last group of people are second lieutenants who came through the OCS program, Mustangs. People who became officers after spending time in the enlisted ranks and possibly were even NCOs. On the plus side, these guys understand how units work. They understand officers and NCOs and the expectations of new second lieutenants. And as a result, they tend to perform their duties well. Another aspect that favors officers who came through the OCS program is that if they serve, 6, 7, 8 years as an enlisted, they don't necessarily have to make colonel or even lieutenant colonel to qualify for retirement. And that means that they can take some professional risks that the ROTC or West Pointers might not be willing to take. They can be a little more courageous when engaging with senior officers. Now, the downside that comes with OCS grads is that they were never cadets. They didn't have that goofy, artificial leadership experience. And as a result, they could be left not really understanding how West Pointers or ROTC folks think. They will sometimes misunderstand how or why another officer sees the military a certain way. You can have some silly Shakespearean type comedy play out when the West Pointer has a disagreement with the first sergeant, but the OCS lieutenant doesn't understand why the West Pointer doesn't understand, so he tries to fix it by doing something that doesn't make sense, and hilarity just ensues. Oh, and another piece of this is that since the OCS second lieutenant has come up through the ranks, they may not fully prioritize the things that their senior rater, the battalion commander, cares about. They may do a wonderful job in the eyes of the rank and file, but they might not exactly be doing the job that their boss wants them to do. Now, before I give you my take on which one of these is best, I would be remiss if I did not include this subtle observation that one of my members provided on an early draft of this video. He reminded me that among the 3 types of second lieutenants, the West Pointers have a curious tendency to spend an unusual amount of time trying to figure out who's in charge. It's as if all of their experience with field leader reaction courses and being evaluated in leadership positions has kind of conditioned them to associate the task of leading with being assigned the job of leadership. While I do remember that behavior among second lieutenants, the good news is that I rarely saw that type of behavior manifest itself among more senior officers. Unlike some of the other differences that we've discussed today, this one seems to go away as officers mature. Anyways, back to the big question, which versions are the best second lieutenants? Personally, I would submit that the answer is none of them. Taken in isolation, no second lieutenant is fully formed, and they all need to grow. Instead, I suggest that the real answer is that for a company to be high-functioning, they actually need a mix of all 3 different types. You want to combine the strengths and weaknesses of each type of second lieutenant. When the West Pointer starts to misinterpret what's going on amongst the lower enlisted, well, the OCS lieutenant can step in and explain. When the OCS lieutenant decides he's just going to pencil whip a bunch of forms, the ROTC lieutenant can step in and be like, I'm pretty sure that the battalion S3 has taken a fine-tooth comb to this one. When the ROTC lieutenant is like, hey guys, it's 5 o'clock, aren't we supposed to be done? Well, the West Point lieutenant can explain to him that if you're going to be in the Army, you gotta be in the Army. Anyway, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on this matter. You would be surprised the number of junior officers who are trying to understand the military experience. And so if you have advice, make sure that you put it in the comments. And now, watch this video.